Okay, let me just start by saying something that's going to sound absolutely insane. I'm going to teach you how to become literally unrecognizable. Not in 6 months, not in 30 days, not even in a week. In a few hours, while you sleep. I can already hear you rolling your eyes through the screen. Trust me, I get it. You've probably seen a million overnight transformation videos that promise you'll wake up looking like a different person. And spoiler alert, you woke up looking exactly the same, just more tired and disappointed. You've tried the ice facials at 6 a.m. You've slept with your hair in that uncomfortable braid that was supposed to give you beach waves but instead gave you a headache. You've done the whole drink a gallon of water and get 8 hours of sleep thing that every influencer swears by. And maybe you felt a little more refreshed, sure, but unrecognizable. Not even close. Here's what I want you to understand. Every single one of those methods is working on the surface level. They're treating symptoms, not causes. They're like trying to change the reflection in a mirror instead of changing what's standing in front of it. What if I told you that the real transformation, the kind that makes people do double takes when they see you, isn't happening in your bathroom cabinet or your makeup bag or even your closet? What if I told you it's happening in your brain, specifically during the deepest stages of sleep, when your conscious mind finally shuts up long enough for your subconscious to actually rebuild you from the inside out? You'd probably think I was selling you some new age nonsense. And honestly, a year ago, I would have thought the same thing. But then, I became living proof that it works. Let me paint you a picture of who I was before I discovered this. I was that girl who had tried literally everything. Every skincare routine, every makeup technique, every diet, every workout plan. I had a bathroom that looked like a Sephora explosion and a closet full of clothes that I thought would make me feel different, but somehow I still felt invisible. You know that feeling? When you look in the mirror and it's like you're seeing a rough draft of who you're supposed to be? Like there's this version of yourself living in your head, confident, radiant, magnetic, but she's trapped behind this exterior that just doesn't match. That was my reality for years. I'd scroll through social media and see girls who seemed to just naturally glow. Not just their skin, though their skin was always perfect, but everything about them. The way they carried themselves, the way they looked at the camera, the way they existed in the world. They had this energy that I couldn't put my finger on, but I knew I wanted it. I tried copying their routines down to the exact products and timing. I studied their poses, their expressions, their entire vibe. I thought if I could just decode their external formula, I could recreate their results. But here's what I learned. Those girls weren't just following routines. They had fundamentally different programming running in the background of their minds. And that programming, it was literally reshaping their physical reality. Now, I know how that sounds. Programming, physical reality, like we're computers or something, but stay with me here because the science behind this is actually wild. Your brain doesn't stop working when you fall asleep. In fact, it gets busier. While your conscious mind is offline, your subconscious mind is running maintenance. It's consolidating memories, processing emotions, regulating hormones, and here's the part most people don't know. It's literally rebuilding your cellular structure based on the dominant thoughts and beliefs you've been feeding it. During deep sleep, your brain releases growth hormone. Your cells regenerate faster than any other time. Your skin repairs itself, your muscles rebuild, your entire system essentially hits the refresh button. But here's the thing that changes everything. Your subconscious mind is directing that entire process based on your self-concept. If your self-concept is, I'm not pretty enough, your brain will literally work to maintain that reality during sleep. It'll minimize the effectiveness of that cellular repair. It'll keep stress hormones elevated just enough to prevent that glow from breaking through. It'll maintain the exact level of confidence and energy that matches your internal story. But if you can reprogram that self-concept before you fall asleep, if you can convince your subconscious mind that you're already the version of yourself you want to become, then that same repair process becomes a complete reconstruction project. Suddenly, you're not just maintaining your current self during sleep, you're building your new self. I'm talking about changes that show up in your face, your posture, your skin, your energy, the way you move through the world. Changes that make people ask if you got work done, or if you're using a new filter, or what you've been doing differently. Changes that make you unrecognizable. I know this sounds too good to be true because we've been conditioned to believe that real transformation takes forever, that you have to suffer and struggle and slowly, painfully earn every tiny improvement. But what if that's just because we've been trying to change from the outside in instead of the inside out? What if the reason most transformations fail is because we're fighting against our own subconscious programming every single day? Think about it. You can put on the most expensive foundation in the world, but if your internal story is, I have terrible skin, you're going to notice every tiny imperfection and feel insecure about it. You can wear the most gorgeous outfit, but if your internal story is, I don't look good in anything, you're going to carry yourself like you're wearing a garbage bag. Your external efforts are constantly being undermined by your internal programming. It's like trying to drive forward while your brain is pressing the brakes. But during deep sleep, those brakes release. Your conscious mind, the part that's always doubting and analyzing and finding reasons why something won't work, is offline. Your subconscious mind is wide open, ready to accept new instructions. And when you give it the right instructions, when you feed it a new story about who you are and what you look like and how you show up in the world, it gets to work immediately, using all those powerful sleep processes to make that new story your physical reality. This isn't about positive thinking your way to prettier. This isn't about manifesting in some abstract woo-woo way. This is about understanding the very real, very scientific connection between your mind and your physical form, and then leveraging the most powerful state of consciousness you have access to every single night. I discovered this completely by accident. I was going through one of the worst periods of my life, dealing with stress breakouts, feeling completely invisible, basically avoiding mirrors whenever possible, when I stumbled onto something that changed everything. It started with a sleep meditation I found online. Nothing special, just a basic relaxation thing to help with my insomnia. But the person's voice was so soothing, and she kept repeating these statements about being beautiful and confident and radiant. I thought it was a little cheesy, but I was desperate for sleep, so I kept listening. The next morning, I looked in the mirror and something was different. Not dramatically different. I hadn't suddenly become a supermodel overnight, but there was this subtle shift in my face. My skin looked clearer. My eyes looked brighter. Most importantly, I looked at myself differently. Instead of immediately focusing on my flaws, I actually noticed what looked good. I thought it was just a fluke. Maybe I was just well rested for once. But I decided to try it again. Night after night, I fell asleep listening to these affirmations about my appearance, my confidence, my energy. And night after night, I woke up looking and feeling incrementally different. Not just better, different. Like I was slowly becoming someone else. Within 2 weeks, people started commenting. Did you do something new with your makeup? You look so refreshed lately. There is something different about you. Within a month, I barely recognized myself in photos from just a few weeks earlier. Within 3 months, my entire life had changed. Not because I'd lost weight or gotten a new haircut or started using different products, because I'd literally become a different person from the inside out. That's when I realized I had accidentally discovered the most powerful transformation tool that exists. And the crazy part, it requires 0 effort during your waking hours. No complicated routines, no expensive products, no gym memberships or meal prep. You just sleep. But you sleep with intention. Now, I need to be real with you about something. This isn't going to work if you're expecting to wake up looking like Bella Hadid tomorrow morning. This isn't magic, it's science combined with consistent practice. And like any powerful tool, it has rules and requirements that you need to understand. You can't just play some random affirmations and expect miracles. Your subconscious mind is smart and it can spot fake programming from a mile away. You have to approach this with the right technique, the right timing, and most importantly, the right mindset. There are also some side effects that nobody talks about. When you start changing this rapidly, your social circle might not know how to handle it. People who knew the old you might feel threatened by the new you. You might outgrow relationships, situations, even entire phases of your life faster than you expected. That's part of becoming unrecognizable. Everything recognizable has to go. But here's what I want you to understand before we dive into the deep end. This works because you already have everything you need inside you right now. You're not broken and needing to be fixed. You're not lacking something that needs to be added. You're perfect, but you're running old software that's keeping your full potential locked away. We're going to update that software. We're going to give your subconscious mind new instructions. We're going to teach your brain to build the you that's been waiting to emerge. Over the next 7 parts, I'm going to walk you through exactly how this works. We'll start with my origin story, the rock bottom moment that led me to discover this method. Then I'll share what happened during that first night when everything clicked and why the results were so intense they actually scared me. We'll talk about the obstacles I faced and the mistakes I made because this journey isn't always smooth. I'll give you the exact 3-step process I use every single night, the one that's transformed not just me, but dozens of other girls who've tried it. I'll show you how to handle the compound effect, what happens when small changes start stacking into massive transformation. We'll discuss the psychology behind why this works when everything else fails, and I'll walk you through what to expect during your first month, including how to deal with the attention and energy shifts that come with rapid change. But most importantly, I'm going to prove to you that becoming unrecognizable isn't just possible. It's inevitable when you align your conscious desires with your subconscious programming. By the time we're done, you'll understand that every night is an opportunity to literally reconstruct yourself. Every time you close your eyes, you're entering the most powerful transformation chamber that exists. And the only question is, who do you want to wake up as? The girl you've always been? Or the girl you've always known you could become? The choice is yours. But first, you need to hear the story of how I learned this the hard way. You need to understand what happens when you've tried everything else and nothing works. You need to see what rock bottom looks like, because that's where this journey really begins. That's where we discover who we really are underneath all the programming that's been keeping us small. Let me take you back to where this all started. Picture this. It's 2:30 a.m. I'm sitting on my bathroom floor in a face mask that's supposed to be life-changing, scrolling through before and after photos on my phone, and I'm literally crying. Not cute, single tear crying. Full on, mascara running, can't catch my breath sobbing. Because I had just spent the last 6 months becoming the girl who tried everything, and I had absolutely nothing to show for it except an empty bank account and a bathroom cabinet that looked like a beauty store had exploded. You know those girls who post their glow-up journey videos where they show you their transformation from awkward to amazing? I wanted to be one of those girls so badly it physically hurt. I would screenshot their routines, bookmark their tutorials, buy every single product they mentioned. I had a notes app full of morning routines, night routines, workout schedules, meal plans, affirmations, and step-by-step guides to becoming that girl. I tried the 5 a.m. cold shower thing. I bought the jade roller and the gua sha tools and spent 20 minutes every morning doing facial massages that were supposed to sculpt my face. I switched to silk pillowcases and started sleeping with my hair in a bonnet. I cut out dairy, then gluten, then sugar, then basically everything that tasted good. I did the 75 hard challenge. I tried intermittent fasting. I bought those expensive probiotics that were supposed to clear my skin from the inside out. I started taking collagen powder and vitamin C and zinc and basically turned into a walking supplement store. I learned contouring and highlighting and color theory. I watched hours of YouTube tutorials until I could wing my eyeliner with my eyes closed. I bought the expensive foundation, the setting spray, the color correcting primer. My makeup collection looked professional. I revamped my entire wardrobe using Pinterest boards and style guides. I learned about body types and color analysis and capsule wardrobes. I bought the trendy pieces, the basics, the statement accessories. I looked good on paper. And yet, every single morning when I looked in the mirror, I still saw the same girl looking back at me. Sure, my skin was a little clearer thanks to the skincare routine. Yeah, my makeup skills had improved dramatically. My outfits were more put together, my hair looked healthier, I was definitely in better shape. But that feeling I was chasing, that inner confidence, that magnetic energy, that sense of being truly beautiful, it wasn't there. If anything, I felt more insecure than ever because now I was putting in 10 times the effort and still felt like I was falling short. I started to wonder if I was just fundamentally broken. Like maybe some people are born with that it factor and some people aren't, and I was just going to have to accept that I wasn't one of the lucky ones. The worst part was social media. I'd post photos where I thought I looked amazing and they'd get maybe 30 likes. Meanwhile, girls who looked like they just rolled out of bed would post a random selfie and get hundreds of comments about how gorgeous they were. I became obsessed with trying to figure out what they had that I didn't. I would stare at their photos for hours, analyzing everything. Their bone structure, their skin texture, their expressions, their poses, their lighting. I convinced myself that if I could just crack the code, I could replicate their success. I bought ring lights and phone tripods and learned about angles and editing. I studied photography and color grading and spent hours perfecting every single post. My Instagram started looking more polished, more professional, more aesthetic, but it still felt hollow. Like I was creating this perfect version of myself online that didn't match how I felt inside. The disconnect was getting worse, not better. That's when I started going down the manifestation rabbit hole. I figured if the external stuff wasn't working, maybe I needed to work on the internal stuff. I bought journals and started writing gratitude lists and vision boards. I did mirror work, where I'd look at myself and repeat affirmations about being beautiful and confident. I tried scripting, where you write about your ideal life as if it's already happening. I made Pinterest boards full of my dream life and spent time visualizing myself living it. I downloaded meditation apps and started doing daily mindfulness practices. Some of it felt good in the moment. Writing about my dream life was fun, and the visualizations were relaxing, but weeks went by and nothing in my actual reality changed. I still felt the same, looked the same, attracted the same energy from people around me. I started to think maybe I was just doing it wrong. So I bought courses and programs and books about manifestation. I learned about limiting beliefs and subconscious programming and all these concepts that made sense intellectually but didn't seem to translate into real results. The more I learned, the more frustrated I got, because according to everything I was reading, I should have been able to think my way into a new reality. I should have been able to affirm myself into confidence and visualize myself into beauty. But every morning I'd wake up and it was like my subconscious mind had hit the reset button overnight. All the positive thinking and affirmations from the day before seemed to disappear, and I was back to square one, looking in the mirror and feeling disappointed. That's when I hit my rock bottom moment. I had been invited to a party, the kind of party where I knew all the effortlessly gorgeous girls from school would be there. I spent 3 hours getting ready. I tried on 5 different outfits. I did my makeup twice because I wasn't happy with how it looked the first time. When I finally arrived, I felt good. Not amazing, but good enough. I had convinced myself that this was going to be my night, that people were going to see me differently. But within 10 minutes, I was standing in the corner watching the same girls who always got attention continue to get attention, while I felt completely invisible. And the worst part? They weren't even trying. No elaborate outfits, no perfect makeup, no Instagram-worthy poses. They just existed, and everyone gravitated toward them. I left early and came home to that bathroom floor moment I told you about, sitting there in my expensive face mask, crying because I had tried literally everything and nothing had worked. That's when I started questioning everything I thought I knew about transformation. Maybe the problem wasn't that I wasn't doing enough. Maybe the problem was that I was doing too much. Maybe I was trying so hard to change the outside that I was completely ignoring what was happening on the inside, but not the inside that all the manifestation stuff talked about, not the conscious mind with its affirmations and visualizations, the real inside, the part of my brain that was running the show while I was asleep. I started researching how the subconscious mind actually works. Not from a spiritual perspective, but from a scientific one. What I discovered completely changed how I understood transformation. Your subconscious mind is basically your brain's operating system. It's running in the background all the time, managing your breathing, your heart rate, your hormone production, your cellular repair processes. But it's also managing your self-concept, your fundamental beliefs about who you are and what you're capable of. And here's the thing. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined, as long as the imagined thing feels real enough. That's why you can wake up from a dream feeling genuinely scared or happy or confused, even though none of it actually happened. Your subconscious mind also doesn't understand time the way your conscious mind does. To your subconscious, there's no difference between past, present, and future. There's only now. So if you can convince it that you already are the person you want to become, it will work to make that reality match that belief. But here's where most manifestation techniques fail. They're trying to program the subconscious mind using conscious mind tools. Affirmations, visualizations, vision boards, these are all conscious mind activities. Your subconscious mind is listening, but it's not really buying it because it knows you don't actually believe what you're saying. When you look in the mirror and say, "I am beautiful and confident," your subconscious mind is like, "Really? Because you've been telling me the opposite for years, and nothing about your actual experience has changed." Your subconscious mind learns through repetition, emotion, and experience. It needs to feel the new belief, not just hear it. And the best time to reach your subconscious mind is when your conscious mind is offline, like when you're sleeping. That's when I stumbled onto something that would change everything, but not in the way I expected. I was having trouble sleeping because of stress and anxiety, so I started looking for sleep meditations. I found this one video that was supposed to help with insomnia, and the woman's voice was so calming that I decided to try it. The meditation started normally, basic relaxation techniques, breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation. But about 15 minutes in, she started incorporating these statements about self-worth and beauty and confidence. At first, I thought it was kind of cheesy, but her voice was so soothing, and I was so desperate for sleep that I just let it play. She would say things like, "You are radiant and beautiful, and people are naturally drawn to your energy, and you wake up each day feeling confident and attractive." Normally, if someone told me to repeat those statements while I was awake, my brain would immediately start arguing. "No, I'm not radiant. People aren't drawn to me. I don't feel confident." But because I was already half asleep, my conscious mind wasn't putting up its usual resistance. I fell asleep listening to her voice telling me that I was already everything I wanted to be. The next morning, something was different. Not obviously different. I didn't wake up looking like a completely new person. But when I looked in the mirror, instead of immediately cataloging my flaws like I usually did, I noticed things I liked. My skin looked clearer. My eyes seemed brighter. I looked rested, but in a deeper way than just getting good sleep. More importantly, I felt different. I felt calmer, more centered. When I got dressed, I chose an outfit that I normally would have been too self-conscious to wear. When I did my makeup, I kept it simpler because I felt like I didn't need to hide behind as much product. I went to class that day expecting to go back to feeling invisible, but something strange happened. People seemed to notice me more, not in a dramatic way, but in subtle ways. Eye contact lasted a little longer. Conversations flowed more easily. I got a few random compliments. I thought it might be a coincidence, so I decided to try the sleep meditation again. Night after night, I fell asleep to the same voice telling me that I was beautiful, confident, and magnetic. And day after day, I woke up feeling more like that was actually true. It wasn't instant and it wasn't dramatic, but it was consistent. Every morning brought small improvements that stacked on top of each other. My posture got better, my skin continued to clear up, my energy shifted from anxious and insecure to calm and self-assured. People started commenting, "You seem so confident lately. There is something different about you. You're glowing." That's when I realized what was happening. All those months of trying to change from the outside in had failed because I was fighting against my own subconscious programming. But when I started changing from the inside out, literally reprogramming my subconscious mind while I slept, my external reality had no choice but to follow. I wasn't just changing how I looked. I was changing who I was at the most fundamental level. And when your identity shifts, everything else shifts with it. Your posture changes because confident people carry themselves differently. Your skin clears up because stress hormones decrease when you believe you're worthy of good things. Your energy becomes magnetic because you're no longer trying to hide or shrink or apologize for existing. People respond differently to you because you're showing up differently in the world. And the crazy part is, most of this happens without any conscious effort during your waking hours. Your subconscious mind is literally reconstructing your reality while you sleep, based on the new programming you're feeding it. It's optimizing your hormone production, your cellular repair, your nervous system regulation, your body language, your facial expressions, everything, to match your new identity. That's when I understood why all my previous transformation attempts had failed. I had been trying to change my reflection instead of changing what was creating the reflection. But I also realized that I had stumbled onto something much bigger than I initially thought. This wasn't just about looking prettier or feeling more confident. This was about unlocking a version of myself that had been buried under years of limiting beliefs and negative programming. The girl I was becoming wasn't a fake version of me. She was the real me that had been waiting to emerge all along. But as incredible as this discovery was, I was about to learn that a rapid transformation comes with its own set of challenges. Because when you start changing this quickly, you don't just get the benefits. You also get all the side effects that nobody warns you about. And some of those side effects almost made me quit the whole thing entirely. Okay, so I need to tell you about the night that changed everything. The night I accidentally broke every rule I thought I knew about transformation and woke up literally not recognizing myself in the mirror. But first, let me set the scene because context matters here. This was about 3 weeks after I'd started listening to those sleep meditations. I was seeing gradual improvements, better skin, more confidence, people responding to me differently, but I was getting impatient. You know how it is when you taste a little bit of change and suddenly you want all of it right now? I started researching everything I could find about subconscious programming and sleep learning. I dove deep into neuroscience articles about brain waves and REM cycles. I learned about theta states and how your brain processes information differently when you're in that drowsy, half-asleep phase. What I discovered was that most sleep meditations were playing it way too safe. They were designed to be gentle and gradual because that's what most people expect from self-improvement. Slow, steady progress over months or years, but what if you didn't want slow and steady? What if you wanted to see what your subconscious mind was actually capable of when you gave it clear, direct instructions? I started experimenting with my own recordings. Instead of just playing someone else's generic affirmations, I recorded myself speaking directly to my own subconscious mind. I used my own voice, my own words, my own specific goals. I made it personal and detailed and emotionally charged. But here's where it gets interesting. I didn't just record affirmations about being beautiful and confident. I recorded myself describing the exact version of myself I wanted to become in present tense as if it was already true. I described waking up with naturally glowing skin. I described feeling magnetic and radiant every time I walked into a room. I described people being genuinely drawn to my energy and wanting to be around me. I described loving what I saw in the mirror and feeling completely comfortable in my own skin. But I didn't just say these things. I felt them. I got into the emotional state of being that person while I was recording. I spoke with the confidence and self-assurance that future me would have. I made my subconscious mind believe that this version of me already existed. The recording ended up being about 30 minutes long, and I made it specifically to play on repeat all night while I slept. Now, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me. When you give your subconscious mind that much direct, emotionally charged programming, it doesn't mess around. It gets to work immediately, and the results can be intense. I put in my earbuds, started the recording, and fell asleep to my own voice telling me who I was. Not who I wanted to become, who I was. What happened next was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I had the most vivid dreams of my entire life. I dreamed I was walking through my life as this completely confident, radiant version of myself. In the dream, I could feel how it felt to be her. I could feel the way she moved through space, the way she interacted with people, the way she felt about herself. It wasn't like watching a movie of someone else's life. It was like I was actually living as this other version of me, downloading her entire existence into my system. I woke up before my alarm, which never happens because I'm usually a terrible sleeper, but I felt completely rested and energized. And when I went to look in the mirror, this is going to sound crazy, but I need you to understand that I'm not exaggerating. I genuinely did not recognize myself for about 3 seconds. My face looked different. Not surgically different, but fundamentally different. My skin was clearer than it had ever been, like I'd been using some expensive treatment for months. My eyes looked brighter, more alert, more alive. My facial structure even seemed more defined, like someone had given me a subtle contour that never washed off. But the weirdest part was my expression. I looked confident, not trying to look confident, actually confident, like someone who had never doubted her own beauty for a single day. I stared at myself for probably 5 full minutes, trying to figure out what had happened. Was it the lighting? Was I still dreaming? Had I somehow learned to do my makeup in my sleep? But when I touched my face, there was no makeup. When I moved to different lighting, the effect stayed. When I took photos from multiple angles, they all showed the same thing. I looked like a completely upgraded version of myself. I got dressed for class, and for the first time in my life, I chose my outfit based on what I wanted to wear, not what would hide my insecurities. I did minimal makeup because I genuinely felt like I didn't need much. I left the house feeling like I owned the world. And here's where things get really interesting. The world responded accordingly. I walked into my first class and immediately noticed people looking at me differently. Not just glancing and looking away, but actual sustained eye contact, the kind that says, "I want to know more about you." During break, 3 different people came up to me to start conversations. One girl asked if I'd done something different with my skincare routine because my glow was unreal. A guy I'd had a crush on for months suddenly seemed interested in talking to me. By lunch, I felt like I was living in a different reality entirely. People were treating me like I was someone worth paying attention to. Conversations flowed effortlessly. I felt naturally charismatic and magnetic in a way I'd never experienced before. But the most shocking part came when I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror again. The changes weren't fading, if anything. They seemed to be getting more pronounced. My confidence was literally changing my facial structure in real time. That night, I couldn't wait to repeat the process. I thought I'd discovered some kind of life hack, like I could just keep upgrading myself night after night until I became some kind of superhuman. So I recorded an even more intense version. I went deeper, got more specific, added more emotional charge. I was basically trying to download an entire personality upgrade overnight. Big mistake. The next morning, I woke up feeling off. The physical changes were even more dramatic. People at school were literally stopping me to ask if I'd gotten work done, but something inside me felt disconnected and unstable. I looked in the mirror and saw this incredibly beautiful, confident-looking person, but she felt like a stranger. Like I was wearing someone else's face and personality. I felt like a fraud walking around in a body that didn't belong to me. That's when I learned the first rule of rapid transformation. Your identity needs time to catch up to your changes. When you change too fast, you create this weird disconnect between who you're becoming and who you think you are. Your external reality shifts, but your internal sense of self is still stuck in the old version. It's disorienting and honestly kind of scary. People were responding to me like I was this magnetic, confident person, but inside, I still felt like the same insecure girl who had been crying on her bathroom floor just a few weeks ago. I didn't know how to handle the attention. I didn't know how to be the person everyone was seeing. The worst part was that I started doubting whether any of it was real. Was I just imagining the changes? Was it all in my head? Was I somehow manipulating people into seeing me differently through some kind of placebo effect? I became obsessed with taking photos and videos of myself, trying to document the changes to prove they were real. I started avoiding certain lighting or angles where I thought I looked more like my old self. I became paranoid that the spell was going to break at any moment and I'd go back to being invisible. Then came the backlash from people who knew me before. Some of my friends started making comments about how I was acting different and trying too hard. They said I seemed fake now, like I was putting on an act. A few people accused me of getting work done and lying about it. Others suggested I was using filters in real life somehow. The attention I was getting from guys made some of my female friends uncomfortable. They started leaving me out of plans or making passive-aggressive comments about how I was too good for them now. People who had never paid attention to me before were suddenly interested, but people who had been in my life for years were pulling away. I realized that when you transform rapidly, you don't just change how strangers see you. You disrupt the entire social ecosystem you're part of. Everyone had me categorized a certain way, and when I suddenly didn't fit that category anymore, it made people uncomfortable. Some people were genuinely happy for me and excited to see me thriving, but others seemed threatened by my transformation, like my success somehow diminished theirs. I started to understand why a lot of people stay stuck, because changing means outgrowing some of the people and situations in your life, and that can be lonely and scary. I also discovered that rapid physical changes can mess with your sense of reality in ways I wasn't prepared for. When you look significantly different from one day to the next, it creates this strange dissociation where you're not sure which version of yourself is the real one. I'd catch glimpses of myself in windows or mirrors and have these moments of genuine confusion like, who is that person? I started to feel like I was living someone else's life, which should have been exciting but was actually terrifying. That's when I understood why most transformation programs are designed to be slow and gradual. It's not just because dramatic change seems impossible. It's because dramatic change can be psychologically destabilizing if you're not prepared for it. Your identity is like the foundation of a house. You can renovate the exterior pretty quickly, but if you try to change the foundation too fast, the whole structure becomes unstable. I realized I needed to find a balance between the rapid physical changes I was creating and the internal work of actually becoming the person who belonged in that new reality. But I also realized that I had stumbled onto something incredibly powerful. If I could create this much change in just a few nights, what could I accomplish if I learned to do it properly? What if I could combine the power of subconscious programming with a more sustainable approach to identity shifts? The problem was, I had no idea how to manage the intensity of the process. The changes were happening faster than I could integrate them. I was like someone who had accidentally learned to drive a race car but had never been taught how to control it. I needed to figure out how to harness this power without losing myself in the process. I needed to learn how to upgrade my identity at the same pace as my external changes. And I needed to understand how to handle the social and psychological side effects of rapid transformation. Because here's what I was starting to understand. Becoming unrecognizable isn't just about changing how you look or even how you feel about yourself. It's about fundamentally shifting your place in the world, and that shift affects every single relationship and situation in your life. Some people will love the new you. Some people will hate the new you. Some people will be confused by the new you. And you have to be prepared to navigate all of that while you're still figuring out who this new version of yourself actually is. The next few weeks were going to teach me exactly how challenging that process could be, because when you start changing this rapidly, life has a way of testing whether you're really ready for the upgrade you're asking for. And I was about to discover that I wasn't nearly as ready as I thought I was. So here's the thing. Nobody tells you about rapid transformation. The universe has a way of testing whether you're really ready for what you're asking for. And that test usually comes in the form of everything in your life suddenly falling apart. I thought I had figured it all out. I had this powerful technique that was literally changing my face overnight. People were responding to me differently. I was getting attention I'd never gotten before. I felt like I had discovered the secret to becoming whoever I wanted to be. But what I didn't realize was that I had also painted a massive target on my back. It started with my closest friend, Maya. We'd been best friends since middle school, and she had been there through all my insecure phases. She'd listened to me complain about my appearance, supported me through my various transformation attempts, and honestly, I think part of our friendship was built on me being the less attractive one who made her feel better about herself. When I started changing rapidly, that dynamic got completely thrown off. At first, she seemed supportive. She complimented my skin, asked about my new confidence, wanted to know what I was doing differently. But as the changes became more dramatic and the attention I was getting became impossible to ignore, her energy shifted. It started with little comments. You're so lucky you found whatever filter you're using in real life. I miss when you were more relatable. You seem kind of high maintenance now." Then it escalated to more direct criticism. She told me I was becoming shallow and obsessed with my appearance. She said I was acting fake and trying to be someone I wasn't. She accused me of thinking I was better than everyone else now that guys were paying attention to me. The worst part was when she said, "I liked you better when you were real." That comment hit me like a truck because it voiced my own deepest fear, that this new version of me wasn't authentic, that I was somehow cheating or faking my way into a life I didn't deserve. But Maya wasn't the only one. Other friends started making similar comments. They'd make jokes about my glow up that felt more like insults. They'd exclude me from plans and then post about them on social media. They'd roll their eyes when I got attention from guys or when people complimented me. I started to realize that my transformation was threatening to them because it shattered their assumptions about how the world worked. They had accepted that I was the insecure one, the one who tried hard but never quite succeeded. My sudden success made them question their own limitations and why they weren't changing too. Instead of being inspired by my transformation, they felt diminished by it. And instead of supporting me, they started actively undermining my progress. They'd bring up old photos of me and make comments about how different I looked. They'd point out any day when I seemed less confident or when my skin wasn't perfect. They'd introduce me to new people by mentioning how I used to look or how much I'd changed. It was like they were trying to remind everyone, including me, that this new version wasn't me, was just a temporary illusion that could disappear at any moment. And honestly, their strategy was working. All their comments and negativity started getting in my head. I began second-guessing everything about my transformation. Maybe I was being fake. Maybe I was trying too hard. Maybe the old me was more authentic and this new me was just some kind of elaborate performance. I started having what I now call imposter syndrome attacks. I look in the mirror and instead of seeing the confident, radiant person I'd been becoming, I'd see someone who was pretending to be something she wasn't. The doubt crept into everything. When people complimented me, I assumed they were just being polite. When guys showed interest, I convinced myself they would lose interest once they got to know the real me. When I had good days where I felt confident and beautiful, I told myself it was just luck or good lighting. That internal criticism started affecting the external results almost immediately. My skin began breaking out again. My confidence wavered, my posture slumped back into old patterns. The magnetic energy I'd been cultivating started feeling forced and unnatural. It was like my subconscious mind was getting mixed messages. During the night, I was programming it to believe I was beautiful and confident. But during the day, I was feeding it doubt and criticism and evidence that maybe the old version of me was the real one. Your subconscious mind can't create lasting change when you're constantly contradicting the new programming with old thoughts and beliefs. It's like trying to drive forward while pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. I started experiencing what I call transformation whiplash. One day, I'd wake up feeling amazing and confident, and by the end of the day, I'd be back to feeling insecure and questioning everything. The inconsistency was exhausting and confusing. That's when I made my biggest mistake. I tried to fix the problem by doing more. I thought if I could just perfect the technique, if I could create even more dramatic overnight changes, I could prove to myself and everyone else that the transformation was real and permanent. So I started experimenting with more intense programming. I tried combining different techniques, Chinese binaural beats, subliminal messages, hypnosis recordings. I would layer multiple audio tracks and play them all night on repeat. I recorded myself giving even more specific instructions to my subconscious mind. I tried to program everything, not just my appearance and confidence, but my personality traits, my social skills, even my interests and preferences. I was basically trying to completely rewrite my entire identity overnight, every single night. And for a few days, it seemed to work. The changes were so dramatic that people at school were openly staring at me. I looked like I'd had a complete makeover by a professional team. My confidence was through the roof. I felt unstoppable. But then everything crashed spectacularly. I woke up one morning feeling completely disconnected from reality. I looked in the mirror and saw this incredibly beautiful person, but I had no idea who she was. I felt like I was wearing a costume that I couldn't take off. The confidence felt fake and performative. The beauty felt like a mask. I had no sense of my own authentic personality because I had been trying to program so many different traits that I had lost track of who I actually was underneath all the modifications. I went to school that day feeling like I was playing a character in a movie about someone else's life. People were responding to me the same way they had been, with attention and interest and attraction, but I felt completely hollow inside. That's when I had my second major breakdown. I came home and immediately tried to scrub off all my makeup, even though I was barely wearing any. I put on my oldest, most comfortable clothes. I avoided mirrors. I felt like I needed to somehow get back to my real self, but I couldn't remember what that felt like anymore. I realized I had made the classic mistake of trying to skip the internal work and just brute force the external changes. I was so focused on becoming unrecognizable that I had forgotten to figure out who I wanted to be recognizable as. The technique was incredibly powerful, but I had been using it like a blunt instrument instead of a precision tool. I was trying to change everything at once instead of making strategic, sustainable modifications that I could actually integrate into my sense of self. I also realized that my environment was actively sabotaging my progress, and I had been letting it happen. Your environment, the people you spend time with, the places you go, the conversations you have, the media you consume, is constantly programming your subconscious mind. And if your environment is telling you that you're not worthy of the changes you're making, it's going to undermine even the most powerful nighttime programming. I was spending 8 hours every night telling my subconscious that I was beautiful and confident, but then spending 16 hours every day in environments and relationships that reinforced the old version of me. My friends were constantly reminding me of who I used to be. My family was making comments about how I was changing in ways that sounded like criticisms. Even my own room was full of reminders of my old insecurities. Old photos, clothes that reflected my previous self-image, journals full of negative self-talk. I was trying to become a new person while living in the old person's life, and that created constant cognitive dissonance. That's when I understood why most people's transformation attempts fail, even when they're using effective techniques. It's not because the techniques don't work. It's because they're trying to change in environments that are designed to keep them the same. Your social circle has a vested interest in you staying consistent and predictable. Your family has established patterns of relating to you based on who you've always been. But your physical environment is set up to reinforce your current identity. When you start changing rapidly, all of these systems push back. They try to bring you back to baseline because change is threatening to the status quo. I realized I had to make a choice. I could either accept that my current environment was going to limit my transformation, or I could make the difficult decision to upgrade my environment to match my new identity. That meant potentially losing some friendships. It meant having uncomfortable conversations with family members who preferred the old version of me. It meant changing my physical space, my daily routines, even my media consumption habits. It also meant learning to protect my energy and my new identity from people who weren't ready to see me differently. But before I could do any of that, I needed to figure out who I actually wanted to become. Not just how I wanted to look or how I wanted people to see me, but who I wanted to be at my core. I had been so focused on the external transformation that I'd neglected the internal foundation that would make the changes sustainable and authentic. I needed to understand the difference between becoming unrecognizable and becoming more recognizable as my true self. Because what I was starting to realize was that the most powerful transformations aren't about becoming someone completely different. They're about removing all the layers of conditioning and limitation that have been hiding who you really are. The beautiful, confident, magnetic person I'd been glimpsing wasn't some fake version of me. She was the real me that had been buried under years of negative programming and environmental conditioning. But to access her permanently, I needed to learn how to change from the inside out in a way that felt authentic and sustainable. I needed to understand how to upgrade my identity at the same pace as my external changes. And I needed to create an environment that supported and reinforced the person I was becoming instead of constantly pulling me back to who I used to be. The next phase of my journey was going to be about learning to do this properly, not just changing rapidly, but changing in a way that felt natural and aligned with who I really was underneath all the programming. It was going to require me to make some difficult decisions about the relationships and situations in my life, but it was also going to show me what real, lasting transformation looked like when you approached it with both power and wisdom. Because the truth is, becoming unrecognizable isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming so authentically yourself that you barely recognize the person you used to be when you were trying to be someone else. After my spectacular crash and burn, I spent about a week doing absolutely nothing related to transformation. No sleep meditations, no affirmations, no mirror work, no nothing. I was basically hiding from my own reflection because I had no idea who I was supposed to be anymore. But here's what happened during that week of avoidance. I started to miss the person I had been becoming, not the unstable, disconnected version who felt like she was wearing someone else's face. The version from those first few weeks when the changes felt natural and gradual and authentic. When I was becoming more myself, not less. That's when I realized my mistake wasn't discovering this technique. It was trying to use it like a magic wand instead of understanding it as a tool that required skill and intention. I had been approaching transformation like I was ordering from a menu. I'll take perfect skin, unlimited confidence, magnetic personality, and can you make it all happen by tomorrow morning, please? But transformation isn't fast food, it's more like learning to cook. You can have incredible ingredients and a perfect recipe, but if you don't understand the process, you're going to create a mess. So I decided to start over, but this time with a completely different approach. Instead of trying to become someone entirely different, I was going to figure out who I really was underneath all the conditioning and programming, and then use the sleep technique to help that authentic version emerge. I started by asking myself a question I'd never seriously considered. If I could remove all the insecurities, all the limiting beliefs, all the negative programming I'd absorbed over the years, who would be left? Not who did I want to become? Who was I already when I wasn't trying to be anything else? I spent a few days just observing myself without judgment. What did I naturally gravitate toward when nobody was watching? What made me feel most alive and authentic? What were my actual preferences versus the preferences I thought I should have? What I discovered surprised me. The real me that emerged wasn't dramatically different from who I'd always been. She was just clearer. More confident, sure, but confident in who she actually was, not trying to be confident like someone else. She still liked the same music, but she wasn't embarrassed about it anymore. She still had the same sense of humor, but she wasn't hiding it to fit in. She still had the same interests and values, but she wasn't downplaying them to make other people comfortable. The beautiful, magnetic version of me I'd been glimpsing wasn't some completely different person. She was me with all the static cleared away. Me without the constant internal criticism and doubt. Me operating from self-love instead of self-improvement. That realization completely changed how I approach the sleep programming. Instead of trying to install new traits and characteristics, I focused on removing the old programming that was keeping my authentic self hidden. Instead of recording affirmations about becoming confident, I recorded affirmations about releasing the fear that had been making me small. Instead of programming myself to be beautiful, I programmed myself to see and appreciate the beauty that was already there. Instead of trying to become magnetic, I focused on removing the insecurity that had been making me repel the things I wanted. It was like the difference between trying to paint over a dirty canvas versus cleaning the canvas first and letting the natural colors show through. This approach felt completely different from the beginning. Instead of feeling like I was putting on a costume every morning, I felt like I was taking off layers of disguise and revealing who I'd always been underneath. The changes were still dramatic, but they felt natural. Instead of shocking people with how different I looked, I was surprising them with how authentically myself I seemed. People started making comments like, "You seem so comfortable in your own skin lately." And there is something so genuine about your energy now. Even better, the changes felt permanent. I wasn't worried about the spell breaking because I wasn't under a spell. I was just being myself without apology. But I also realized that changing my internal programming wasn't enough if I was still living in an environment that reinforced the old version of me. I needed to upgrade my external reality to match my internal shift. This is where I had to make some difficult but necessary decisions. I started with my physical environment. I went through my room and removed anything that reminded me of my insecure phase. Old photos where I looked uncomfortable, clothes that I'd bought to hide my body, journals full of negative self-talk, even makeup products that I'd only used because I thought I needed them to look acceptable. I wasn't throwing away my past, but I was creating space for my present self to exist without constant reminders of who I used to think I was. I replaced those things with items that reflected who I was becoming. Photos where I looked happy and confident, clothes that made me feel beautiful and comfortable, books and art that inspired me, products that enhanced my natural features instead of hiding them. My room went from feeling like a shrine to my insecurities to feeling like a sanctuary for my authentic self. Then came the harder part, addressing the relationships that were holding me back. I had to have some really difficult conversations. With Maya, I finally said, "I understand that my changes make you uncomfortable, but I need you to decide whether you want to support who I'm becoming or keep trying to pull me back to who I used to be." Her response told me everything I needed to know. She accused me of being selfish and changing for the worse. She said she missed the real me and that this new version was fake and shallow. That's when I realized that Maya's version of the real me was actually the limited, insecure version that made her feel better about herself. She didn't want the authentic me. She wanted the diminished me. Ending that friendship was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but it was also one of the most important. Because I learned that you can't transform your life while maintaining relationships with people who are invested in your limitations. I had similar conversations with other friends and even some family members. Not everyone reacted as badly as Maya, but I had to set clear boundaries with people who consistently tried to undermine my progress or remind me of who I used to be. Some relationships ended, some evolved, and some people, surprisingly, became more supportive once they realized I was serious about the changes and wasn't going to let their negativity pull me back. I also had to upgrade my daily environment and routines. I changed where I spent my time, choosing places that made me feel good about myself instead of places that triggered insecurity. I changed what media I consumed, unfollowing accounts that made me feel bad about myself and following people who inspired me to be authentic. I even changed small things like the music I listened to while getting ready in the morning, choosing songs that made me feel confident and happy instead of whatever was trendy. Every single environmental factor became a choice. Does this support who I'm becoming, or does it reinforce who I used to be? But the biggest breakthrough came when I figured out how to combine the internal work with practical daytime strategies for maintaining the changes. See, the sleep programming was incredibly powerful, but it was only working for about 8 hours a day. The other 16 hours, I was constantly being bombarded with stimuli that could either support or undermine the new programming. I needed a system for protecting and reinforcing the changes during my waking hours. That's when I developed what I now call the 3-layer method. Layer 1 was the foundation, the nighttime subconscious programming. This was where the real transformation happened, where I was literally rewiring my identity at the deepest level. Layer 2 was the reinforcement, conscious practices during the day that supported the new programming. This included things like positive self-talk, visualization exercises, and most importantly, acting as if the new version of me was already real. Layer 3 was the protection, environmental design and boundary setting to minimize anything that contradicted the new programming. All 3 layers had to work together. The subconscious programming created the internal shift. The conscious practices reinforced it, and the environmental protection prevented it from being undermined. But here's the key insight that changed everything. The conscious practices couldn't just be generic affirmations or visualizations. They had to be specifically designed to bridge the gap between who I was becoming during sleep and who I was being during the day. For example, if I programmed myself overnight to feel confident and beautiful, I needed to spend the next day deliberately noticing moments when I felt confident and beautiful. I needed to catch myself in mirrors and appreciate what I saw instead of immediately looking for flaws. If I programmed myself to be magnetic and charismatic, I needed to practice being magnetic and charismatic in small, low-stakes situations throughout the day, having genuine conversations with cashiers, making eye contact with strangers, speaking up in class. The overnight programming was planting seeds, but the daytime practices were watering them and making sure they grew properly. This approach felt completely sustainable because I wasn't trying to maintain some fake version of myself. I was just consistently choosing to be the authentic version of myself instead of the limited version. And the results were incredible. Within a few weeks, the transformation felt completely natural and permanent. I wasn't worried about losing my progress because it wasn't something external that could be taken away. It was just who I was now. People stopped commenting on how different I looked and started treating the new me as normal, which was actually the best possible outcome because it meant the changes had integrated into my identity completely. But the most powerful result was internal. I stopped feeling like I was working on myself or trying to improve myself or fixing something that was broken. I just felt like myself, and myself happened to be confident, beautiful, and magnetic. That's when I understood what real transformation actually is. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about removing everything that's preventing you from being who you really are. The version of me that emerged wasn't artificial or forced. She was just me without all the conditioning and programming that had been dimming my natural light. And once I figured out how to sustain that, the compound effects started kicking in. Small wins built on small wins. Confidence bred more confidence. Success attracted more success. The positive momentum became self-sustaining. But what I wasn't prepared for was how quickly that momentum would accelerate and how dramatically it would change not just how I felt about myself, but how I moved through the entire world. The compound effect of authentic transformation is unlike anything I'd experienced before. It's not just about getting better results. It's about entering an entirely different reality where different rules apply and different possibilities become available. And once you cross that threshold, there's no going back to who you used to be, even if you wanted to.